I'm really excited to welcome Jesse Wilkinson today. He is well, I'll let him introduce himself in just a second, but he's going to give us a different level, a different perspective on the casing process because of what he has been through. So Jesse, we're excited to have you. Welcome, and I'll let you introduce yourself before I explain what's going to happen inside the case.
Hey everyone, Jesse Wilkinson here. Yeah, I guess a little bit of a different perspective because I'm actually no longer recruiting. I've already signed a full-time offer to join Bain after graduating from my MBA program in May. But let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I went to undergrad at Brigham Young University. And after graduating, I spent 4 years working in financial services. 2 working with high net worth clients, individuals, and then 2 years working in a very niche industry called clearing and settling. And as I was working, I actually didn't know very much about consulting, but I was assigned a firm mentor who had hired. Was running strategy for the firm and had hired a team of consultants. And so I saw the work that they were doing and I was super intrigued. I wanted more impact in the work that I was doing, given that I saw the work that they were doing. And so I actually worked backwards and figured out that doing an MBA would be the best way to give myself a chance to work in that kind of role. And so I'm now at the Darden School, second year, so I'll graduate again in May. And so I'm just a big MC fan. So I just said, what a great opportunity to get a case. I haven't been able to do one for a while since my second round interviews. So glad to be here.
Awesome, Jesse, we're so happy to have you. Thanks for the background. And just one point of really important questions. What's your late night food go-to in Charlottesville?
My late night food go-to? That's a good question. I don't know.
I
feel
will
like
judge you if you say Wendy's, but I know. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. You can say Cookout. Yeah.
I feel like I should say Cookout. In Texas, they don't have Cookout, and so it's probably not the greatest food for me to eat late at night, but it is always open, so that'll be my answer.
Okay, awesome. Great, I love it. Well, Jesse, we're excited to have you. The point is definitely to make this a full, rich casing experience. So if you have a little bit of the jitters back, just like you did before, that's probably pretty normal. But at the end of the day, our goal is to really just make it a great educational experience for everybody. So I'm excited to walk through this case with you. I'm going to introduce the case and I'm going to dive in. I'll start the timer and get it going. So our case today is for a company called Bain Co, really kind of creatively named. And I'll give you the background. I'm going to walk through the different sections of the case. As we're going, I'm going to be timing what's happening inside each of the sections of the case. And at the end, I'm going to give you feedback both by section and then in the time. I'm going to run this Bain style. Why not? We have 2 Bainees together. So I'm going to run it in the way that Bain would run the case, which means that I do have a lot of prescripted things that I need to have happen, but kind of the order that we do them in is going to be a little bit up to you depending on the way you drive it and the questions that you ask. And if you ask me wild questions, I might give wild answers. So no promises that I'm going to stick to the script. Anyhow, let's have fun and dive into the case. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
So our client is Bain Co. They're an over 100-year-old US-based candy company that has 25% margins and have been traditionally focused on high-end chocolate bars and hard candies. They've grown both organically through R&D and by acquisition. A new CEO has just been appointed, and he's promised Bain Co shareholders that he will double revenues while maintaining margins over the next 4 years. The current revenue is $5.4 billion. And the CEO has come to us for help. How would you help Bain Co double its revenues? And do you have any questions about the background?
No, this sounds like a sweet case.
That's bad. That's really bad.
I guess I might have a couple of questions. So I'd love to make sure that I just understand a little bit about the company. So Bain Co, over 100 years old. Basically, they're looking to, it sounds like, double revenues without decreasing their margins. Their margins are currently at about 25%. Does that sound about right?
That's right.
Fantastic. Okay, so a couple of questions that I have. Doubling revenues is ambitious but exciting. I'm curious, do we have a set time frame
Yes,
that we want
4
to achieve
years.
this in? 4 years, okay. Double it in 4 years. Fantastic. You know, and this might be something we can dive into later, but I'm curious if this company sells, you said it's US based.
Mm-hmm.
Do they sell candy globally currently?
They do.
Okay. And then I'd like to just understand a bit about the operations of the company. So, you know, I'm imagining that Candy Co. sources kind of cocoa beans, sugar from farms and things like that, then has a sort of manufacturing process to create this candy. Do they sell to distributors or do they have their own sort of storefronts? How does it get to the customers?
They only have a few of their own storefronts. They do have, for example, a local factory where they have, it's kind of like you know, an agritourism or a factory tourism. I'm not sure exactly what you call that.
Yep.
And then they have a couple of other places in large cities, like they have a store in Times Square in New York, for example, but that's not their strategy. Those are really just more advertising storefronts.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, I think that's about all that I need to know for now. Okay. If I can take just a couple of minutes to think about how to approach this, we can go from there.
Sounds good. Don't leave me hanging.
Okay, great. Okay. So, Jenny Ray, I think I have an idea of how I'd like to approach this.
Sounds good.
So, you know, when I think about how is it that we can double revenues? Again, it's a pretty ambitious task in front of us, but there's actually 4 categories that I'd like to look at, and I actually think about this as sort of a 2x2 matrix.
Okay.
So the name of the game here is growth, and so as I see it, there are sort of 4 ways we can grow across 2 dimensions, which are customers and products. Now, what I mean by that is we could look at number 1, selling new products to new customers.
Okay.
We could look at selling, number 2, new products to our existing customers.
Okay.
Number 3, we could look at selling existing products to new customers.
Okay.
Or we could look at selling number 4, existing products to existing customers.
Okay.
Now, there's different information I'd like to have in order to know which of these make sense and which ones don't.
Okay.
So under box number 1, new customers to new products, I'd love to understand which countries or which regions that we typically sell in. Are there territories that we've not yet penetrated? Secondly, I'd want to think about what new products might make sense that we could develop. It sounds like we do a lot of chocolate bars and hard candies. So are there chewy candies that we could look into building? There might be some
chewy candies. Really
yes, me too. So maybe there's some capital expenditures that would be necessary to do something like that, but certainly worth looking into.
Okay.
Number 2, new products for existing customers. Again, I'd be interested in understanding a little bit about, what are the new types of products that we could develop. For this, I'd be interested in looking into like a survey of our customers to understand, what is it that they might be interested in, what types of products that might make sense, because as their existing customers, we might have data on some of their preferences. There might be some other things we could develop. Maybe we could move into something like drinks. It's not likely, but it might be worth exploring. Number 3, we're talking about looking into our existing products for new customers. Another thing we'd want to understand, in addition to the ones I've listed before, would be what are the distribution channels that we currently use? Maybe thinking about if we sell online, or how much we actually sell in our stores versus distributing to retailers, and understand maybe what would the distribution channels be that are used in some of the other countries or regions that we're thinking about entering. And 4th, if we're talking about existing products to existing customers, I think there we'd really want to look at a marketing strategy. So we might look at the ways that we currently market, and we might also benchmark that versus competitors or maybe even adjacent industries to understand what are some new ways that we could market, or maybe it's even just a matter of, hey, should we just pour more money into marketing? So, I think that the most interesting, or the place I'd love to start, would actually be thinking about developing new products for our existing customers. Jamie, do you have any data on any new candies that the R&D team has thought about creating?
So, you know what? I do have some data on that. Interestingly, right now, the R&D team doesn't feel like they have any capacity to do anything in terms of new verticals. So they're open to using exactly the same products that we have, but they have basically no new vertical capacity at the moment.
Okay. Yep. Makes sense. Okay. So we will just sort of cross off here the new products section, and we'll look into the existing products.
Okay.
So if that's the case, let's look at first selling our existing products more to our existing customers.
Okay.
Do we have any information on like our current marketing strategies?
Yeah. Well, tell me what kind of changes we could make. Maybe we can talk about that, right? What would we do differently with our customers in order to drive more revenue from that segment right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the question here is really, how could we drive more revenue from our existing customers, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So there's a couple things I'm thinking about. The first one is we could get our customers to buy more candy every time that they go to make a purchase. So it's more units per purchase. Or we could talk about getting our customers to buy more frequently.
Anything else?
So let's see. I think that those more units per purchase, more frequently, we could certainly think about increasing the price of our candies, which would do more to generate more dollars per sale, but without selling more units.
Tell me what the pros and cons are of each of those strategies.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the pros first. So the pros of more units per purchase. Yeah, I think that might be the easiest to do. I think that we could offer, you can imagine maybe at a grocery store asking for promotions or more beneficial placement of products within a store would be an easy way to get our customers to buy more units. We could also think about bundling. And so those are things that I think would be very easy to do. For the cons, there's potential that our customers shop less frequently if they buy more units per purchase. Maybe you get a tummy ache and don't want to buy candy again.
So they buy in bulk, but then they go on a diet afterwards or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, that would be maybe a potential risk.
Yo-yo dieting.
Exactly, right. So and when we think about purchasing more frequently, some of the pros there, if our customers are buying the same quantity per purchase, that feels like the best lever to like drastically increase our revenues. And so maybe I'd say the larger impact if we can pull that lever to get our customers to buy more frequently.
Okay.
Some of the cons.
Just you see more upside there, basically, right?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
What you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So
how are we going to do it? How do we get them to buy more frequently, Jesse?
So I think you could make them more available. So that would be distributing within more channels.
Okay.
I'm trying to think about a way to create some sort of loyalty program. I've never seen one before with candy, but there's a first time for everything. Maybe we create some sort of game with prizes based on how much you buy candy, sort of a Willy Wonka approach, if you will.
Yeah, I feel like there used to be something like that when I was a kid, where you had to collect like different letters inside candy boxes, and then they spelled stuff, and you could redeem them for prizes or something.
Okay,
like that.
There you go. So maybe we bring that back.
Okay.
So I'm trying to think about some of the cons for getting our customers to purchase more frequently. It's basically the opposite or the inverse of more units per purchase. Maybe if I used to buy 2 candy bars every time I go. Maybe if I'm buying more frequently, I only buy 1. So that's maybe the risk. And then increasing price is very interesting. We of course would have to understand what the likelihood is to continue buying at the same levels, but I do think that this is usually like a small portion of somebody's kind of spend on a monthly basis, and so this might be another lever that's pretty easy to pull. Now the downside, we're not going to double our revenues by increasing the price alone. I think it's very unlikely that we could, change all of our candy bars prices from $2 to $4. And so if I was going to pick, I would be interested in looking at, I think more frequently has more upside. I'd actually like to look at selling more units per purchase first, because of how easy it is to do. And then maybe we could look at selling more frequently if that doesn't get us to where we want to be.
Okay, great. Well, I did mention before that we have these kind of 2 segments, and we've done some price analysis on the bars segment. So I have some data to show you here.
Great.
See if I can get this up in a way that is elegant. There we go. Tell me what you see here.
Okay, so U.S. chocolate bar prices. It looks like we have the price per bar. Oh, interesting. And it looks like there are maybe 5 competitors compared to Candy Co, and it gives us their prices. Is this that's what it seems like to me?
Yep.
And the thing that's glaring to me right off the bat is that we're pricing our candy bars at $2.24, compared to the highest price of $2.30. So it seems like from first glance, there's definitely an opportunity to raise prices. Now, that may not get us all the way to doubling our revenues, but it would be a great start. I'd be interested in understanding what this would do to our total revenues. I guess I would need some information on how many candy bars we're selling, and we could think about where we could increase the price and what that would do to our overall revenues.
Okay, that sounds good. Now, I'm going to leave this up for a second because I have some more data that I want to share with you.
Great.
And so I'll leave that up for just a minute. I've got some data on the current breakdown of the market. And that might help us a little bit. So chocolate bars are 75% of revenue and the hard candies are 25% of revenue. Our chocolate bar segment is growing at 4% per year, and hard candies are growing at 12% per year.
Okay, great.
What we're trying to figure out is between organic growth and this potential price increase, which we estimate, and I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, but we estimate that it's probably not significant enough of an increase to drive a major volume drop. That between the two of those, we're curious how far that gets us to our goalposts. Okay,
that's great. So let's see. Basically, what we want to know here is what's the total, what's the total increase in, probably on a percentage basis because we don't have total revenues, but what's the increase in our revenues based on potentially raising prices plus the growth of the market?
Yeah. I did give you revenues actually at the beginning. Do you remember?
Oh, yes, you did. I'm sorry. So $5.4 billion actually.
Right.
So that's great. 5.4 billion. Okay, perfect. So kind of what's the increase in revenue? So I'm imagining that one question I have, I'm imagining that we would raise our prices now. And so we would capture that price increase for all the future years of the market growth. Does that sound right?
That's right. Do you want to do it every year though? I mean, do you want to make the calculation every year? Or are you just assuming that difference is going to be active?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, for example, we weren't going to raise the price by 2 cents now and 2 cents next year, or anything like that.
Let's just assume that we're going to raise it to whatever level on this chart you think is reasonable. Okay. And then calculate for me what difference that makes.
So I think first glance, it looks like $2.28 makes sense. It seems like it's close to the average price increase.
Okay.
And so if we wanted to figure out what the increase in revenue would be, basically what we want to know is, let's assume that the hard candies don't, we're not going to change the price there. So we want to know what the increase in revenues will be for hard candies, plus the increase in revenue from chocolate bars.
Okay.
And really what we want to know is basically how many units will we sell, multiplied by what this new price would be is, $2.28. We could actually do it by 4 cents per. Well, no, let's calculate the whole amount. So
we could calculate the whole amount, but let's do it by percentage.
Let's do it by percentage. Okay, great. So what we want to do is let's start with the hard candies because we're not going to change the price at all.
Sounds good.
So hard candies we know are I might want to start with the dollar figure and give you the percentage afterwards. What do you think about that? Okay. So we have 5.4 and 25% of 5.4 billion is, let's see, 2.7 divided by 2, which is 1.35 billion.
Yep.
Which is year one. And what we're going to do is we're going to multiply this by 1.12 times 1.12 plus times 1.12. And we want to know what the revenue would be in year 4 as opposed to like over the 4 years, right?
Yeah, we just need to know the end number.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. So let's do this. I'm going to multiply 1.35. Okay, so in year 2, we'd sell about 1.512. Can I round that to 1.5 or should we be more exact?
No, that's fine. I think 1.5 should be fine.
Okay, so then in year 3, that will see an increase of 0.18 billion, I think, 0.15, and then 2%. Yeah, so 0.18. So 1.68 times 1.12. So it should increase by 0.336. So we have 1.68 plus 0.34 will take us to about $2 billion in hard candies. That is a, well, I guess we'll do a percent increase on the total revenue. So we should be
And that gets us to year 3. We need year 4.
That was year 3. Okay, so then
assuming that we're in year 0 basically now.
Oh, right, yes. So in year 4, we would just increase by 12%, which would be 0.24. So two and a quarter billion basically would be our revenue for hard candies in year 4. Now for, okay, so now for chocolate, let's see. Let's figure out. So if we're going to increase by 4 cents, well, let's do. We're going to start at 75% of 5.4 billion, which is 5.4 minus 1.35, which is. It's 4.05 billion is our starting point. That's year 0, not year 4. And we'll say 4.05. Year 1, that's going to be 0.405 plus about 0.08, if it's all right if I round. So we're going to be about it's going to go up by about 0.49. So about 4.55 in year 1.
Tell me how you got that one again, Jesse. Let me just make sure we're using the right numbers.
Yeah, so 10% of 4.05 billion is 0.405 billion.
I gotcha. It's 4% growth. I think that.
That's right. It was 12% was for the hard candies. Yep.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's do 4% here. So 4.05 times 1.04. So we're going to have 1% of that is 0.0405 times 4 is going to be about 0.16 billion. So we'll go from 4.05 to about 4.2 billion. From 4.2, increase of 4% is going to be 0.042 times 4 So it's going to be 0.168, about 0.17 billion will be the increase. So about 4.37 for year 2. 4.37 times 4%. .175 basically. It will be the increase. So 4.37 to 4.4, about 4.5 billion in year 3. And then in year 4, let's see, 4.5 times 1% of that is 0.045, and we multiply that by 4, so that would be 0.18, so 4.68 billion. Now, what we want to do here is we want to add these together and then figure out the percentage change from year 0. So we have 2.25 plus.
I don't actually need that necessarily. I mean, you could tell me why you want to do it, but I don't know that I need that.
Oh, okay. So I guess what we can look at then is what's the total increase in revenue, right? So 2.25 plus 4.68, that is going to give us about 6.9 billion, 6.93 billion will be the new revenue in year 4. Now that's great. Still short of our doubling the revenue goal, but it is an easy lever that, like we said, will not likely cause a decrease in the total number of units, right? And so if we could do that, we still have the option to look at these other levers of, bundling or looking at more units per purchase, or getting customers to buy more frequently.
We actually haven't factored in the price change yet, though. How are we going to factor that in?
You're right. So that actually needs to increase by, so it's 4.68 billion plus or multiplied by the percentage increase in the price. So we said from 2.24, and then 4 cents is it's a pretty small percentage. Let's see here. So 2 cents is about 1%. So it's about a 2% increase in the price. Let me double check that. So $2.24, 10% is 22 cents. So it's, about 2.25 cents is 1%. And so that means, to go to 4 cents is a little under a 2% increase in the price.
And 2% is fine.
So, okay. So let's just do the 4.68, and we'll increase that by 2%. So it's 0.0936. So that takes us to basically $4.77 billion. So what we want here is to look at the 4.77 plus the 2.25, takes us to right around $7 billion. So 7 billion. Does that sound right to you, January?
Sounds pretty good.
Okay, great. So $7 billion again. That's great. Now it looks like the increase in price is a very, it's a pretty small lever, right? Because what we're doing is we're getting about 2% on 75% growth from that, and all the rest of it comes from the market growth. So look, I'd say no downside, and not real downside in doing it, but doesn't really get us where we need to go.
Would you push price anymore?
Yeah, I think, Yeah, I think there's an argument that you could increase the price some more, and I'm thinking about that. Like if I'm walking into the gas station, I don't really compare the difference between 2 cents between the candy bar that I like and the one that I don't. So maybe it would make sense to increase it another 2 cents. That would change it from, it would basically double from 0.094 billion to 0.18 billion. So it would basically take us to 7.2 billion dollars.
And again, like you said, it doesn't get us all the way there, but I don't know that there is downside to doing that. Like you mentioned, there probably isn't a lot of elasticity around it. Okay, great. Well, we've looked at a couple of different things, and I think we've got time to look at one more. What else would you want to look at here?
So let's look at increasing the number of units per purchase for our customers. I think that makes the most sense, again, because it's easier, even if it doesn't have quite as much upside.
Okay. I like that too. I want to look at doing it internationally in particular, because I think there may be some opportunity there. So I've got some data about some international markets, especially because the US market is pretty set in their ways in terms of the candies that they like and the things that they want. But there are some new emerging markets that are pretty interesting for us. We're going to look at China, other Asia, and Europe. And I'll give you some data. Just the total size of the Chinese market is 2.2 billion in terms of chocolate and hard candy, the segments that we're in right now. And then the total size of the other Asian markets, so non-China Asian markets, 4.5 billion. And so based on this chart that I'm going to put up on the screen now, I'm curious what you see as an opportunity potentially in those markets for us.
Absolutely. And just one clarifier, these 2.2 billion and 4.5 billion, that's in dollars, right?
That is, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's take a look. This chart is the worldwide market share. Okay, so it gives us our market share compared to competitors in these other markets. Looks like Candy Co has an enormous market share in the US and about 45% market share in Europe. So it actually makes me think that there may be opportunities in other markets where we're not as established. Primarily, I like the other Asia market. It looks like it's very fragmented. There are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 competitors, and all of them have, it looks like the largest of them has about 25% market share. So I think that there's an opportunity for us to penetrate there, plus the fact that it's double the size of the China market. So that'd be the first place that I'd like to look.
What would you do? How'd you enter the market, or how'd you push growth in that market?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think the first thing I do is benchmark the way that we are distributing and marketing in the other Asian markets compared to these competitors. I'd be especially interested to understand a little bit about competitor 4 and 5, because they don't have a ton of market share in these other 3 markets we've mentioned, but they seem to do very well in other Asia. And so I'd be curious if they're doing something differently than the other competitors would be. So I'd love to look at what they're doing first.
Sounds good. I don't have any more data about those companies in particular, but I do have some potential options for companies that we could acquire.
Oh, great.
And so one of the companies, there are two companies for sale right now. I mean, we could obviously acquire potentially other ones, but there are 2 that are for sale. One is a nut and snack bar company with strong brand equity and a distribution system in China. The second is a small gummy company in Europe. Should we acquire one? Should we acquire both? Should we acquire neither? And why would either one of those either be a good fit or not a good fit?
So let's talk about, maybe we could talk about some of the pros and cons of each and then figure out which one we think makes the most sense.
Okay.
So I think the natural snack bar and distribution system company, the benefits there would be mainly that they have this distribution system in place, which means that we don't have to spend a bunch of money. Remember, we're concerned about margins here. So we don't have to spend a bunch of money to establish these distribution channels. And so that we might be able to continue to operate that as its own business. Now, the downsides there is that it doesn't seem to fit with our brand. It doesn't really fit with kind of our core capabilities. And so we'd have to think about building out maybe future R&D capabilities if we ever wanted to move those snack products over to some of the other markets. So I'm a little bit less interested in the nut and snack bar company. Now, the small gummy company.
I love gummies.
Yes, and I think you said the small gummy company was in Europe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'd love gummy bears. So that's 1 point for the small gummy company. So the benefits, the main one is this fits in really nicely with kind of our brand as far as I can understand it. We have the hard candies, we have the chocolates, and so gummies would be another candy you might think of at Halloween or other occasions where I think we'd sell a lot of our candy. And so I think that for that reason it makes sense. Some of the downsides, not a ton of brand recognition for the small gummy company. The benefit there that we have brand recognition, at least in some of these markets. And so I think that we, given our ability to brand, it looks like we're 100 years old. So this name is going to carry some weight. And so I think that we could potentially offset the kind of the downsides of that small brand. So my first look would be to look at the small gummy company. Now, there would certainly be questions about what's the price and some of those other things, but that would be what I'd first be interested in looking at.
Okay, great. Well, we've run out of time and we need an update for the CEO. So based on everything that we've talked about so far, what do you think our potential options are? And do you think that we're going to be able to get him to the 5.4 billion?
Yeah. So if you can give me just a second. So really what we're looking at here is, could we double the revenues within the next 4 years? Mm-hmm. Right now, it looks like we won't be able to. Now, there's a couple of things that we can do that I think would make sense to get us close or on our way. Number one, we should raise the price from $2.24 to $2.30 of our chocolate candies. Number two, we should look at acquiring the small gummy company in Europe. And then number three, I guess the third thing that will help us to get there is just going to be the growth of the market over the next 4 years in both hard candies and in chocolates. Some of the concerns, we didn't actually have a chance to look at some of the other options. For example, getting our customers to buy more frequently. And there may be opportunities, as we mentioned, in selling to creating kind of new products organically that may be more attractive. But I do think that the first step we should take is figuring out what's the price for this small gummy company and would it really make sense to acquire it. Okay,
great. Thanks, Jesse. You can relax now. All right. What do you think? Is it just like riding a bike?
No, it's harder than I remember. When I listen to the podcast, I always think, oh yeah, this would be easy. Exactly. And so, it was definitely a lot of fun. I definitely missed casing the math. It took me a minute to get caught up, but overall, I think it was okay. I'm not sure if I would give me a job offer. Fortunately, I already have one.
Oh, suckers! Yeah, totally.
Exactly. What did you think?
I thought it was really good. Let me just highlight a number of things as we go through it really quickly. First of all, I'll talk about just the soft stuff, right? You were clearly enjoying yourself and not stressed by the times that I had you go back and do something or reconsider something. You were very go with the flow, but you remained quite structured. So when I said, hey, we need to go back and factor in the price increase, not perfect that you forgot it, but at the same time, it wasn't hard for you to loop back into where you were. It didn't make you get lost or fluster you. Also, we kind of had, some running joking going on in the side. And that stuff really can't be underestimated. If overall I'm evaluating whether or not I think you can do it, and I think you'd like doing it, and I think I'd like having you do it, right? I think that overall, like, your pure delight in going through the case was really good. And you had a couple of common mechanisms, especially in the creative brainstorming, that I thought were really good. And I would be curious, I wanted to poke on you and just ask what you were writing down. But you really quickly kind of broke down, here are the three things that make sense. Here are the core focuses of these areas that you want to highlight. And I just thought you did a really good job of, kind of making sure that you were going methodically through a lot of the questions that I asked instead of shooting from the hip. And so like overall, I think that smoothed out some of the bumps that were there in other places inside the case. So let me just run through it. First of all, 2 minutes and 49 seconds to open the case with your clarifying questions. The guidance that we give is that you should ask 2 kinds of questions about the business problem and the business model. So you nailed it. You kind of doubly confirmed, right? How many years, right? What, making sure that you had the revenue. You didn't tie that into the rest of the case, but again, that was a bump, but not a major diversion. And then, do we sell globally? What are the ops of the company, right? So those kinds of questions are exactly what I'm looking for from a great candidate at the beginning. And I really did feel like you had a pretty strong sense of where we needed to go and how we needed to get there. Your structure took you about 2.5 minutes. When you first described it, I felt like, whereas normally the overview at the beginning would make so much sense, it took us such a long time. It took about half a minute to go through just like this is my matrix and this is my 2x2. And I like how you had thought about that, but I actually thought about afterwards that you could have just gone through that and said, like, I have 4 categories, right? And so I started writing down the 2x2, and then I realized that you were naming your categories, but I didn't realize it until later. So I think if you had just maybe communicated that a little bit more clearly, that would be good. We lost your audio for a second. I think you're muted.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And then we kind of went into a number of different sections of the case. There wasn't anything that you took longer than 4 minutes to do, math or creative wise. And I pushed a number of different things for you. So the first was like, how do we get revenues from existing customers? So I really pushed you on that one. And then I was, you probably felt it, but I was going to what else you until you got that price increase option, but you snuck that in there pretty quickly. So you did all right on that. And then, on the price increase, we got there, but I was kind of curious as to why. I would have wanted you really quickly to realize that extra 2 cents of gap would have doubled the increment pretty quickly. And so, so you hedged that one and I pushed you on it and you were like, oh yeah, like why not? And also it makes a big difference in terms of that particular piece. When you went through the math, the math was not completely flawless. There was one time that you did the 12% that it ended up a little bit off. I decided to let it go because what I was thinking about was my judgment was you could do the math. You laid it out really clearly. I didn't have any issues with you like not being able to multiply like that really weird number by 12%. And so I just was like, yeah, we're going to be close. And it didn't change the answer either, right? The answer was we're not going to get there. And there's really nothing that we looked at where we would get there. My final point, just so that everybody knows, one way that I would have pushed you if we were coaching and you were doing cases this weekend or, some other time coming up soon, would have just been, I felt like the running commentary versus the goal could have been a little stronger. So we had 5.4 billion that we needed to get to, and kind of keeping a running tally of like, okay, that gets us this far. This is the delta. And then like, here's a little bit more and here's the delta for that. Like I didn't know at the end when you concluded that you were going to have such a strong response and be so clear about the fact that we weren't going to get there because I didn't hear that as a running commentary throughout the case. And so if you had like, for example, in the China and other Asian markets, when I gave you those market sizes, the total of those markets was 6.7. Like we would have had to have major market share in those markets to close the gap. Right. And so, this is, I'm trying to box you into a corner and at the end you were just like, yeah, we can't get there. But I wanted a little bit more digging on a few of those areas to try to figure out like, what would it take in this market? Okay, we can't get all the way there here. So we're gonna have to add that to the list, but we're gonna have to go back and find some other options. And that's really, this is Hershey. That's basically like what they've had to do is take like a super multi-pronged approach to try to target some of the different changes that they need. So anyhow, awesome. Yeah, I hope that you enjoyed it. And again, thank you so much for that. So at this point, I'll turn it over to other folks for questions.